and welcome back to the Across the Pod NFL podcast. The Conference Championships are now done as we now look forward to Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas as the Chiefs will take on the 49ers. I am, as ever, your host, Andy Davis, here to review the Conference Championship, here with a returning guest. You would have seen him last probably in our Cardinal season preview. Back with us today is Oliver Kent. Oliver, how are you, mate? How are things? How have you been?
I'm good. I'm good, mate. Disappointing year for us as the Cardinals, but apart from that, enjoying the season.
Yeah, obviously you came to the last time. Probably not. I think you and Sam were the two had the two lowest record predictions in terms of how many wins you think the team would get. And I think the season really went still not many wins, but I think probably a lot better than probably you thought it would.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just got some positives, and it's one of those things when you do sort of a rebuilding season, or you're on for a losing season, is success comes in some different kind of forms, and you're looking for some positives more than anything. I think we hit all those. So, we beat some teams that probably shouldn't have beaten, and played about as you'd expect with a backup QB when we did, and that was it. So.
Yeah, I think certainly you look at next season. You've got obviously two. I believe it's two first round picks at the moment.
Yeah.
I think Kyler Murray seemingly, he's not going anywhere as you sort of thought would happen. And yeah, I think now you can look at other positions and I think I think it's been a good first year for Jonathan Gannon. I think that going into next year, I think it's should be a lot more positivity going into this year than there was maybe last season. Well, this season, but last year.
Yeah. It'll be more. It will certainly be more exciting off season, I think. And no, Monty likes to wheel and deal his picks. So, like you say, it's two first round picks at present. So who knows what will happen there? Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. So let's head on to the two games. The first one was the 8 p.m. kickoff in the UK, 3 p.m. Eastern, as the Chiefs made once again the Super Bowl after beating the one seed Ravens 17 points to 10. Story of the game, really, you look at both teams were level after the first quarter, but then the Baltimore Ravens didn't score until the final quarter, and the Chiefs didn't score after halftime. So interesting stat there. I mean, looking at the stats, particularly Lamar Jackson had one touchdown, one interception, 272 yards, including a very amazing highlight play in that game. Mahomes only had one touchdown, but zero picks. Pacheco was a leader in the rushing game of 68 yards, one touchdown. Travis Kelce was, of course, the main guy for the Chiefs, 118 yards, one touchdown. And then for the Ravens, Zay Flowers, 115 yards, one touchdown from five receptions, but did have the all important mistakes in the game. And that's really where I want to
Mm.
start. Really, is Zay Flowers. I mean, I don't know whether you saw my Twitter yesterday where it was I probably overreacted slightly to that, saying he cost them the Super Bowl. But you got to look at the two plays that did happen, which ultimately probably did cost them in the end. You look at the obviously the taunting call, which I think that's another story for itself, with the fact Kelsey got away with it. But then, of course, it was the fumble, in that game, or the touchback, I should say, that probably ended up costing them. And I think Zay Flowers will obviously look back at that, and I think he was obviously visibly upset. I think he was crying a little at Beckham. Obviously, it's upsetting for him. But what was your take on that and Zay Flowers' two costly mistakes?
I think I think the taunting one's indefensible. Realistically, like I get it's an emotional game. I mean, throughout it, you could see that they, certain things were getting let go and stuff like that. And it's the playoffs; they do tend to let things go. He wasn't. He was more flagged for obviously the ball spin right by him, and it's an emotional game. Like I said, it's a big play, but you just got to keep some composure. And it's like it's just he's a rookie. It is what it is. That kind of happens. But for me, I think people are probably a bit harsh on the fumble. Like ultimately, he did what you would want him to do in that situation, which is try and score. You're in a game where you're struggling to score anyway. There's no guarantee that on from four tries from the second. It sounds crazy to say, but from four tries from the 2 yard line, there's no guarantee they'd actually come away with points. Do you know what I mean? I know it sounds bonkers to say that, but he did exactly what you should do. And for me, it's more just of a better play. I think it was Nick Bolton. It might have been Nick Bolton, but it was more of a better play for me. And it was akin to sort of, Cam Chancellor and Calvin Johnson, where he punched out the back to save the game. So I see it more as a great defensive play and something that, Zay's had a good season, I'd say, all in. So live and learn and go again. But Ravens team will be looking a little different next year as well, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a pending free agent list for the Ravens. And it's quite long, and you look at the fact that
Mm.
Michael McDonald maybe one of the new. I think there's a lot of talk of Seattle with Mike McDonald. And I think
Mm.
that's that. I think we'll see with the Lions more on them later on. But I think we'll see the same thing with the Lions when Ben Johnson leaves. This could affect them, and I think sadly it could be one of those occasions where that was their one chance to make it. And I think you look at their how you mentioned defense, how good their defense played. I mean, I mentioned it before, shutting out the Chiefs in the whole second half, and I think really there was that second half when it seemed after me at half time, I think a lot of people at half time, it seemed the game seemed done, and then the Ravens just were just keeping this team in it. And I think there were some great defensive plays.
Mm.
And I think sadly for them, they just couldn't get done on offense. And I think Lamar Jackson threw a couple of questionable throws. You look at the one in triple
Yeah.
coverage in the end zone, particularly that was quite questionable. I think Phoebe Schechter made a great point. Someone you know pretty well. That just because the play's there to throw, doesn't mean you have to throw it in that area. And I think
Mm.
that with someone as mobile as him, not looking at Jared Goff, who is probably the least mobile of the four, someone who can move around like he can. You think, and he did it early in the game. There's a point where he did move around and do all that. So I think he definitely could have found a way around the pocket and made that sort of and just got the first down and got on with it. But I suppose at
I
that
think,
point of the game, you're desperate to get points, and I suppose
yeah,
you see that gap open for a split second, you probably think in that split second, you haven't got time to think really. And that, we're all saying this, aren't we? It's like, people
yeah,
who have got 10 seconds to think about it, whereas he's got milliseconds to think about it.
yeah. I think there's two things there for me. There's the one where Isaiah, like he gives the signal to throw it, which most QBs will do. They're trusting their guys, and it's a safety who's coming from the other side, and it's badly underthrown. But I think for me in general, I think the Ravens just had an appalling offensive game plan, and they just went away from everything that got them to the AFC Championship game. I mean, I don't know why they suddenly decided in that game that it was going to be shotgun all the time, four receivers out wide. They had Mark Andrews come back; he barely saw anything. I think they had something like less than 10 rushing attempts if you don't include QB scrambles, which is for me is crazy when you think about the Ravens, their identity for however long they've been in. You know, big tight end sets. Patrick Ricard is one of the best fullbacks in the game. Barely was in there. Like I just think they went so far away from their identity, what got them there, what makes them difficult to play. And it just played into the Chiefs' hands, realistically. Chiefs were able to play fast, able to get after Lamar, cover, and I think like when you look at the Ravens receiving core, you've got Odell who's on the wrong side of 30. You've got Patrick Bateman who's not exactly a burner. And then you do have Zay Flowers, but again, Zay's a rookie. And you just think, why did you go away from what made you this, elite team going throughout the entire season? And to me, it was infuriating. I found it really, really infuriating. Like I think they had 6 attempts with Gus Edwards or something like that, and then 30 yards. And even then, I think he was averaging something like 5 or 6 yards per carry. So it's not like it wasn't working. It just, and like you say, if your defense is playing at such a high level, and you really do have to credit Ravens defense, they were lights out for the whole thing. I find it baffling that Harbaugh didn't just have more faith in them and stuck with what they should have done and gone for it. But that's where you end up. It's credit to the Chiefs. I mean, Mahomes it's inevitable at this point that he's always going to arguably their worst season as well. From a performance perspective, you'd say this is one of their worst seasons, but yet again, here they find themselves in the Super Bowl. So it's just bonkers.
Yeah, you've got to give Chiefs Mahomes so much credit because, in terms of playoff wins for quarterbacks, he's now already third in all-time list of he had
Yeah,
14 playoff wins. If he wins on Sunday, 2 weeks time, he'll be one
yeah.
behind Montana. Obviously, Brady's miles ahead, 35 playoff wins. But to be 6 years as a starter and to have the third most playoff wins in history, I mean, look at the fact he's had of people like, Peyton Manning, Steve Young, John Elway, Terry Bradshaw, and even Rodgers has got 12, and he's been a 20-year league veteran. And Wilson's only got nine, Brees only got nine playoff wins. Kurt Warner's only got nine. So the fact he's doing this, in 6 years, and it took him until a fortnight ago to play a game on the road in the playoffs that isn't a Super Bowl. You look at just everything he's doing, and I know he's got Kelsey, but you look at everyone else. I mean, you've got
But I think he's just got Kelsey. That's the thing.
yeah,
He's only
and
got Kelsey. If you said to the average fan, name me 3 receivers on the Chiefs, I don't think they'd be able to.
mm,
It's Kelsey. That is it. She Rice been pretty nice,
mm.
but you know what, Marquez Valdez-Scantling, like he's been around, you know, a journeyman around the league for 7 years. And Rashid, I couldn't even name you the next one. Do you know what I mean? Pacheco's obviously very good. I thought the Chiefs O-line was probably star of the game,
Mm.
to be honest with you. The time he had, and obviously Mahomes does Mahomes things. But yeah, credit where it's due. He's probably the least talent he's worked with for a while, and he's still where he is. And I saw something where it was he's played 17 playoff games now, which is obviously now a full season, right? And it's like an MVP season. It's 4,300 yards, it's 70% completion, it's 35 touchdowns, like 7 interceptions, something like that. Like, and you got to remember as well is that the playoffs are it's the best teams. It's the best versus the best. You know, you're not going up against the bottom feeders, the Cardinals of the season,
Yeah.
if you will. But you're not though. You're not. You're not
Yeah.
facing, you know, 4 and 13 teams. You know, every other week or whatever. You're going up against double-digit win teams who all have legit aspirations of beating, you know, getting the Super Bowl. So it's just bonkers what they've been able to do. It's also a testament to Andy Reid as well. I mean, it's some fantastic stuff. Even just finding him in the draft when everyone else just let him go is ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm sure the Bears are looking on with a lot of regret. And I think with Celts, I mean, I said for a lot of this year that I thought he was maybe showing signs of decline, but the last two games,
Mm-hmm.
especially the Bills game, two touchdowns in that one, it seemed like I love this scheme. They were just doing so many just short little passes and just getting down the field, and the clock management was amazing in terms of I think the first half it was 20 minutes to 9 minutes or something like that. The difference in time on the clock, and they
Yeah.
just really just almost stopped the Ravens getting on the field, and I think that probably disrupted the Ravens in the South. And Kelsey was just, you think at some point the Ravens would have stopped it, but there's probably times where even if you try what you want, but sometimes you just can't stop things like that. And I think Kelsey, you know, there's a lot of talk of retiring. If he wins again, it could happen, but I still think he's got years left in him, especially if it comes to playoff time. Even if it just takes it easy in the regular season, you know that comes postseason, he's going to be the guy that Mahomes trusts. And I think as long as he's got him, then everything else doesn't really matter. And I think
I,
Marlon
I was
Scantling,
just going to say, but as long
yeah,
as he's got Mahomes, why would he pack it in?
yeah,
Why would he
yeah.
pack it in? He's happy. You know, he's always got a chance at a Super Bowl. Like you say, he could change up how he does his snaps throughout the year and be smart with it. I think something to say about Kelsey is, you know, he was followed and covered by Carl Hamilton most of the night. Right, that's an all-pro player, and he just had an incredible game again. So I know we say here, oh, he's showing signs of decline or whatever. Might have been a bit of a rot. Do you know what I mean? He could have another 1,300 yard season next year or something like that, as long as he's got Mahomes. Yeah. Sorry to cut you off about
No,
MVS, but
I
yeah,
just want to say that
it's crazy.
I love the fact that Valdez Scantling all year has been criticised, drop
Yeah,
after drop, but in the big moments when he needed it, that first down, who was there? Him. So I think that just shows again the Chiefs. I mean, you look at the Patriots in the year. Amendola never did much in the regular season.
no,
Edelman to a certain extent the same sort of thing, but them two always, and even Chris Hogan always showed up in the playoffs, and they aren't Jamar Chase, they aren't AJ Brown,
no,
they aren't Tyreek
no.
Hill, but these guys like those three, and like the Marvalda Scantling, I think it could still be Tony, maybe not, he could still apart, but I think these players that aren't on world beaters are getting the job done because of Mahomes, because of this coaching staff from Andy Reid. I think even looking at Matt Nagy as a coordinator now, I think
Mm,
it's
mm.
just you got to give them credit. I mean, six straight AFC championships. They've won four of them. Really should have won five if they close out that Bengals game. So the Chiefs, they are dynasty, and I think that for me, I don't know what you stand on as Ollie. If Mahomes win a Super Bowl in 2 weeks' time, is he a top three quarterback of all time? He'd have more rings than Peyton Manning, more rings than Favre, more rings than Elway. He's got more talent than a lot of these players that have won multiple rings. Where do you think he is now? Where do you think he could be in terms of his legacy after this season if he goes on and beats the Niners in 2 weeks?
I think the fact that we're even having that conversation at his sixth season probably says it all, to be honest with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, if he goes and wins it, right? And like you mentioned, he's passed all those kind of things and just accolades. It's then just a longevity game. Do you know what I mean? All he has to do then is just be average for the next 10 years or so, and he'll be an all timer. Do you know what I mean? And I think honestly, it's bonkers to say it, but you know, could he eclipse someone like Brady in terms of wins? And I know if you said that 5 years ago, people would just be laughing at you, but it speaks for itself. You know, QBs in this league now have anywhere from 12 to 15-year careers, right? The good ones, at least. I should preface that. We're not talking about the fifth round backups, although Brock Purdy might be an exception to the rule. But if he's where he's at now and he continues on his form and he gets another 6 years, there's no reason why he can't just keep racking up these, these. And it will be a case of, well, does Andy Reid stick around? Kelsey's going to have to, it's the natural progression of the NFL and these roster changes. But I think they've proven that if this is their worst roster, their worst year, they'll improve next year and they'll keep going. So I don't. I think right now it's hard to say because it's only 6 years. But I mean, I don't see why he couldn't be a top three or anywhere from top three to top one. I really do honestly think that he's got the best shot of anyone in recent memory of outdoing Brady. Um, and the fact that he got to play briefly against him, right? And that takes that out of the debate as well. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just crazy stuff. So who knows?
Yeah, and I think the one thing that will, I think even if Mahomes does, get more playoff wins or gets more rings than Brady, the only thing I think would go against him in sort of the whole GOAT debate is the fact that Mahomes in his prime against an aging Brady in a Super Bowl played against each other.
Yeah.
Who won? Tom Brady. I think that may go against Mahomes, but I think certainly he's got a chance to eclipse Montana. And I think that he's already 2 wins off him. I think Montana's quite a far one to go. He's got 4 Super Bowls, but Holmes get a third, then he's not. He's only one off there. I do think that even if he retired, say after Super Bowl, say if he just got bored of it or injury struck and his career ended, I think right now you see the first ballot Hall of Famer. I genuinely think
Yeah.
that his career, he's done. He's already got more wins than Drew Brees and Russell Wilson. And Drew Brees, to me, he is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He will be, and I think that to do what we've done already, I think it just and the impact as well in terms of he's not had a season where he's not been in the AFC Championship game in terms of as a starter, and that's crazy. I mean, some people haven't had that in the Dak's not had it in whole career, and some players never get to that game or never win that game, and he's been in 6, hosted 5 of them, and he's won 4 of them. So, yeah, for me, it's just an outstanding achievement. And it's not just him. I think the defense has been a big part of their success this year. I love
Mm-hmm.
Jerry Sneed. He's been great. Obviously, you've got people like Chris Jones. I think their defense has been the best part of their team. But at the end of the
I think
day,
it's so underrated. It's so underrated
yeah,
in the fact that the whole thing. Yeah, you know,
absolutely. But at the end of the day, Mahomes gets the credit, and that is the nature of being the quarterback. And I think at the end of the day, that cake when it come push to shove, the defense played well, but Mahomes once again proved that. Really, I said it before last week. Who cares how many wins you get in the regular season? As long as you get in, obviously it makes an impact in terms of seeding. But then again, they were on the road against the Bills and the Ravens, two hot form teams, beat them both. So yeah, I think Mahomes is just it's just excellent. We can talk about them all day, but you better move on to our other
yeah,
which was I think definitely the game of the week, as the Lions took on the Niners. And I mentioned before, the Niners did win by 34 points to 31, but that's not the whole story. The Lions
mm.
were 27, sorry, they were 24 to 7 up at halftime. And then they didn't score until right in, and the Niners had a 17-point comeback and won this game by 34 points to 31. I mean, Ollie, first of all, just what a game that was.
Yeah. I mean, crazy game, and I think the way the NFL's going, it's obviously gearing towards enjoying these high scoring games a bit more. Do you know what I mean? It's not like say their game of the week, but that's not to say the Ravens and Chiefs game is poor. It's just one of those things where it's an offense league. People like points. People like more than 50 points in a game. But again, the narrative there, the comeback story, and I guess Shanahan brushing it off a little bit. I think it's a bit sad because everyone wanted it for the Lions, and I think everyone wanted it for the Ravens as well. It's just it's the way the league goes sometimes, and it's weird now that we're going to enter a Super Bowl where you've got two sort of opposite narratives, where you've got Mahomes with the lowest probably caliber roster he's worked with, and you've got Brock Purdy surrounded by all of this talent. Do you know what I mean? So it'd be interesting to see how it pans out. But I think everyone had the 49ers on their Super Bowl bingo card throughout the entire year. When you look at how last year ended with the NFC Championship game, they could have easily made it to the Super Bowl there. Um, and then this year it just shows that if they don't have Brock Purdy missing an arm, they can actually do some things. So, but I think for me, Christian McCaffrey is the MVP. I think he showed it again in that game, really went off. And I think Lions fans would be kicking themselves a little bit, and some decision making there and some of the errors they had there. But that's the way the playoffs go.
What do you make of the fourth down calls from Campbell? Because we talked about last week when there was a lot of you look at the Bucks Lions game and the Packers game about going for it on fourth down rather than going for the field goal or even just punting it away and putting them further back into territory wise. Also, Dan Campbell, the most fourth down was either the most fourth down calls or the most successful fourth down calls in the league this year. So obviously it's worked and it's got them where they are. But do you think maybe he could have slightly gone away from normal and been more conservative, or do you think he was right to just stick with his guns, stick with what's got him to where they were?
Well, I think there's a little context that needs to come in for some of the fourth down calls because let's bear in mind that a fourth down call, in your opponent's 10-yard line is a lot different to a half field fourth down call, right? And again, that's where the field goals come into it as well because how guaranteed are you of a field goal at the halfway line compared to the 10-yard line, for example? And you know, we're coming into these things of ifs and buts and maybes, and we just don't know what would happen. I think the role of analytics in the decision making has become a bit inflated. There's certainly a place for it, absolutely, and there's a reason that teams subscribe to that way of thinking. But in my experience and what I've seen throughout the season, some of the biggest sort of comebacks have come off the back of those fourth down things, and it's one of those scenarios where you know yeah, probably thought about the momentum a little bit. I think Dan Campbell. You've just seen your defense have 27 unanswered, or however many answered points at each of those fourth down calls, and you're just starting to think that Shanahan's getting in rhythm. Do I really want to give them the ball back? How much is it worth? But I think the multiple fourth down calls probably said it all, and it's one of those things where it's not as easy as saying, well, X times 3 points would have been the difference in the game or whatever, but looking back on it, it's tough not to criticize those calls, and you should have just taken the points.
Yeah, and you have to sorry for Jameer Gibbs as well. I mean, a rookie who was brilliant in this game. He was pretty
Mm.
much the life and blood of this offense because they were running it almost all the time. They're going for quite an old school approach and just run the ball. And him and
Mm.
Montgomery were just they have been all year really. I think two really key parts as well as St. Brown and Key's having a great game. I have a great rookie year and. I think probably outshone by like CJ Stroud and Jordan Allison for Rookie of the Year, but he's been brilliant this year. And to make that
Yeah.
fumble in the game, I think that he obviously that's obviously they scored from a touchdown. That seemed to change momentum. Obviously, there was I think there was a fourth down missed throw from Goff, or I think it was a drop or something from
Well,
Josh
yeah, Reynolds
just
should have called
before
that.
that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think the fumble obviously did ultimately change momentum, and obviously that got the Niners the ultimate win. So I think for Lions, I think on one hand you got to look at it as what a season for them. I think a lot of Lions fans are thinking this way. The fact that they got all the way to this far, their first playoff win in since '91, and to win multiple playoff games in one year. What season for them? But on the flip side, you have to think just what if? Because I think even Dan Campbell said himself this morning. He told his players that they missed their best chance, or only chance of making a
yeah,
Super Bowl, which I thought was bold, but it might give the inspiration next year to go on and go one step further. But um, you got to think as well, just what if?
yeah. I mean, I think the thing for me is personally, and even when I've coached and made these decisions, I'm going to make you beat me. I'm not going to make it easy. And for me, those fourth down calls, I understand the logic because if you convert them, they completely change the perception of the game. But when something like this happens and we sit here, you're going to rightfully get that criticism of fourth down. Had they taken the points, right, or the field position and played it that way and still lost, we would just be saying the 49ers, they were great. They did what they needed to do. So I think between some coaching decisions and, like I say, the costly errors, I mean, turnovers always change how games go. There's only certainly so many possessions, and really, I just think the Lions, like you say, they were right. They had the right formula. Pound it. They had Jameer Gibbs. They were perfect all season. Really is why Goff has had some success he's had. In terms of the weight hasn't always been on his shoulders, and they were just in prime position. I just think, you know, it's one of those things where Shanahan knows how to call offense. He's probably one of the best play callers we've seen for a very long time, and it goes into half. Right, he's got time. Right, a two-score lead is not actually that big at half unless you start making decisions about fourth downs, unless you start making decisions, not decisions but mistakes in terms of fumbling and stuff like that. And so, I think for me it probably was the right outcome, but I think the Lions are going to rue this one for quite a while. The NFC's on a little bit of a rise. It's been a bit of a slump compared to the FC for the last couple of years, but there's some talent coming through, like you say, and we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I mean, I think look at the fact that Ben Johnson does leave, it's just seemingly he's going to go into the Commanders as a head coach. that we've seen with the Eagles this year. I think the loss of coordinators can ultimately affect and almost become victim of your own success. That if you do well, you lose your
I'm
coordinator.
very grateful for Gannon. Very grateful for Gannon. So I'm not going to complain. I saw something that every team has had to replace their OC since 2022.
Really?
Every
Wow.
Yeah, something like that. It's crazy. It is crazy. Yeah, yeah. I think
That
it just shows the momentum that the league's going in. Like we say, like I said earlier about the point scoring and the offense driven sort of game. Like they're such prime head candidates, and it's off the back of the Shanahans, it's off the back of McVay's and people like this. And we know that the formula is coach comes in, new QB, hit the reset, build the roster. We know that that is the formula every team wants to do. So what do? Right, bring in the OC to help the keep. It's all just like a butterfly effect. It all just that's how it goes. I think it'll be interesting. I can't believe that some people have already been placed already as well. I do find that bizarre. Like the Cardinals were in a similar situation last year to where you were waiting to the very end, sort of, to pick your poison. And the reason people do that is because, well, the guys in the NFC Championship games or the AFC Championship games and the Super Bowl probably are the better candidates in terms of the coordinator role. So I think some of the moves we've already seen are a little surprising. But yeah, like I say, it's a credit to him. That whole Lions staff has just been incredible in terms of turning the team around.
Yeah, and I think you've got to look at one thing that I think will give them some belief and positive is the fact that
Mm,
their team's so young. I mean, you got Laporta and Gibbs as rookies; they're on rookie deals.
yeah, yeah,
Same Brown. They got some Brown. I think he's not on the rookie deal, but he's young. You look at like the Goff's only on $21 million in 2024. Aiden Hutchinson's only in his third year.
yeah.
Jack Campbell, Brian Branch. There's just so many. They've been the example. If you look at the Rams a few years ago, they were the example of how you win by just giving up trade picks and doing it that way. But the Lions have proved how to draft, and also they were a beneficiary of that Rams trade. But they have proved how to draft. I remember even at the time when they drafted, people were criticizing the picks of Jack Campbell, Jameer
Mm.
Gibbs. But
Oh,
they, yeah,
I
me
did.
too. Me too. I'll say take Bijan or take
Or trade
whoever.
or trade down or trade
Yeah,
down or whatever,
yeah,
But I think sometimes we forget, and it's what as well. Like when the Patriots were in their prime, no one understood their draft sort of selection process. Everyone thought that was bizarre, and you got to remember that rosters have holes and gaps in them, and so you've got to build something with a vision in mind. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't always just go best player available. It's not always possible to go best player available. So um, they've done a stellar job, and any time that your picks are contributing to your success is a credit to the scouts and to the GM and to the coaches who are deploying them as well. I think it's something like you say, over the last three drafts, they've got 10 or 11 starters out of it, which I know doesn't seem like a lot. But if you think of 10 or 11 starters and between offense defense, you've only got 22, or 25, however you want to call subs, or whatever. It's not a bad ratio, to be fair. And it's the way that you do, like you say, you build structure, you have young players, and it's how you get success. And it means that when they do have someone leave or there's a gap, they can just hit free agency and go, right, we'll pick our best player available in free agency rather than the draft. So no, they've done a very good job. And I think as well, like you said, they had that identity, right? They had that identity, and they're probably only going to get better. I know Dan Campbell says it's their hardest one, but I think they'll probably be better next year. Now they're going to get everyone else's best a bit more, and they're going to have a tougher strength schedule, but I think they'll be better for it. Yeah.
yeah. I think a huge player to Brad Holmes, who of course comes from that Les Need sort of tree into the GMs, and I think that he's already probably the top five, top 10 GMs in the whole league. I think I view Snead and Roseman as the top two, but I think he's certainly done a great job. But in terms of the two teams that obviously have made it through, obviously you'll get my predictions later on when you do our preview episodes. But in terms of you, Ollie, how you seen this game? Because obviously the story is it's a rematch from Super Bowl 54, the one in
Yeah.
Miami. Obviously, the Chiefs won that, Mahomes' first ring. Obviously, the Niners have gone a long way since, and they're probably a better team, even better team than they were back when they had Jimmy G as their quarterback. But the Chiefs
Mm.
have got way more player experience now, and of course, in that game, they for a lot of the game were doing pretty badly, which they showed a lot of maybe playoff nerves. So, how are you seeing that game? They are probably the two best teams in the playoffs. The Niners certainly were the team everyone thought would start the year, and the Chiefs the same. So, yeah, how are you seeing that game?
Yeah, it's a difficult one to call because they're so contrasted in what they're, like the matchup's perfect, right? The matchup is perfect. You know, like I say, like you've got someone arguably in Brock Purdy who people have called him a game manager and stuff like that, and you've got Mahomes who's clearly the best in the game at the moment, and then you look at the other strengths of the roster, like we've spoken about, you know, who's catching the ball for the Chiefs outside of Kelsey, right? And then the 49ers coverage is probably their weakest part of that defense. Now that's saying something. I'm not saying it's bad, but when you look at the rest of that front seven is ridiculous. And the Chiefs O line is good as well. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. I mean, we've got 2 weeks to prepare. That's always good. Always good. Rested. I think for me, I don't want to see the 49ers win as a divisional opponent.
Mm.
And I just think it's almost Brady-esque to where how can you bet against Mahomes? I just think that's it for me. I don't see how you can bet against him. Now, I'm probably gonna say something like 25-32, or it'll be a field goal, something like that. But I can so see us being in a situation where 49ers are up by 3 or 2 or whatever it is, and there'll be 1 minute left, and Pat Mahomes will just take it down the field and score because they'll be unstoppable. Do you know what I mean? So I think Chiefs probably win it. I think it'll be a very good game. I do think it'll be a very good game. Um, but yeah, I think Chiefs probably edge it. Now that might be biased because I don't want 49ers to win, but yeah. And to be fair, I don't want to see Taylor Swift on my screen any bloody more. But yeah, I think Chiefs probably take it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be shocked if she's not doing a halftime show next year. I think what that would bring to league,
uh,
I think it's going to happen sooner or later. And I've got to say, actually, I've been saying Chiefs Niners pretty much since week 4 when we've been talking about like who we think's going to make it. And I did say the Bills would beat the
yeah,
Chiefs, but I just saw the matchup was there. But that's take some praise for that. I wish I'd put a bet on it, but I think again, it's just yeah, it should be a good game though. I think for me personally, I
yeah.
think I like Mahomes. Wasn't a fan of his antics against Bills, but
No,
at the
I
same
agree.
time, I don't like in any sport unless it's your own team, someone winning it back to back. And I've never seen the Niners win it. I knew well, I was watching the scores when they did win it last. Sorry, when they lost it to the Ravens.
Mm.
But I've never seen them lift the Super Bowl in my lifetime. So I think that's why I was wanting it to be at least the Ravens and Lions or Niners because I've seen the Chiefs win it multiple times. But
Yeah,
I
Ravens
think
Niners. Ravens Niners. I was backing from about like week 10 or something like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
especially with the conspiracy over the logo.
Yeah, and people love to do that, but it blows my mind because there's got to be about 6 teams in the league that wear red, right?
Yeah.
And I know that obviously purple is just the Ravens or whatever, but like, come on, like you know, you could have said, yeah, the Chiefs could have been one. You could have said the opposite, said the 49ers would be the red team or whatever.
Vikings.
There's yeah, or the Bengals or something like that. Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just it blows my mind. It's just that association thing where people find patterns, isn't it? But yeah, look, I think it'll be a great game. I think like it is Clash of the Titans. Do you know what I
Mm,
mean? Like you say, like you've got this 49ers team, which perennially have been unreal for the last sort of 4 years, and probably have just been that QB away. But I don't know if I don't know if Brock's it. I think you saw that Ayuk catch against the Lions. I mean,
yeah.
that's just Jimmy G in the Super Bowl last time they played the Chiefs, just an overthrow. You know, is it any different? Is it any different? Do you
Mm.
know what I mean? So
No, it's
I don't
true.
know.
It's true.
We'll have to see. But yeah, if I was, I think if I was the Chiefs and I was sort of game planning, I would make Brock Purdy beat me deep. I would say you'll get it. I'd go risky, but I would just say you're not getting anything under. You're not getting the easy completions. Christian McCaffrey's not going to be allowed in the game. You are going to have to throw past 20 yards if you want anything. And it's ballsy and it could cost them, but that's what I would do personally.
That's interesting. And from someone who has been a head coach in the past, it's good to get your thoughts on that because we rarely get guests or anyone. I think we had Jeff Reinbold on. Apart from that, no one's really come on and given that coaching sort of perspective. So yeah,
Mm.
really fascinating. And I think that is true because I think that one thing they're so great as is the yak, is the art to catch the whether it's George Kittle on a short play. We saw Kyle Juszczyk last night.
Yeah.
McCaffrey turning a bit like the Dolphins and Tyreek Hill Waddle. They'll turn 5, 6 yard plays into 50 yarders, and I think that Debo Samuel as well. I think I think they're fast, but they're not. I wouldn't say I could be wrong here. They're not like they're not like a Hill, they're not like a Mosa, they're not like
Mm.
really speedy. If I'm right in saying that with those two, so I think yeah, that'll be interesting. I think the Steve Spagnuolo against Cal Shanahan.
Yeah.
I think that's
Well,
really
what a matchup! I mean,
game. Yeah,
that is an unreal matchup. Yeah, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
that's as good as you can get realistically because he does some crazy stuff on the defensive side. If you look at the X's and O's of it, it's bonkers the kind of stuff that he asks them to do. And obviously, when you're in the NFL, you have the athletes to do it. It makes life a bit easier. And Shanahan's as good as it gets in terms of showing you one thing to set you up and delivering after. Like he goes in at half time. He looks at what's been given to him from the defense and he just goes, right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to change it all up. But yeah, for me, I just think, like you say, like we've seen all this yak, we've seen all this talent, from an easy perspective. I would just say that you're not going to beat me by. It was always my coaching philosophy, and I was defensive minded. It was I'm not going to let you beat me by plan A. You're going to have to win with your plan B, and if you do, fair enough. But for me, it would be you've got to throw it deep if you want to beat us, you're going to have to be good beyond 20 yards. Can Brock Purdy do it? I don't know. That's the way I would look at it. Yeah.
fascinating. That it really is, and that's where we'll end it. Yeah, thank you once again to Ollie for coming on. Great to have you
No,
on once again.
it's great to be on. Thanks for having me, Andy.
No problem at all. It was really good to meet you in London. But since you deny the
Yes.
Battersea,
Patsy.
yeah, Battersea, but
Yeah.
that was a nice little surprise seeing you on. Well, it looked like you on your morning jog when I saw you.
I was just around the corner. I didn't realize it was on. I only live around the corner, obviously. So I had to take up the opportunity. But it was good to see you, mate.
Yeah, you too, and yeah, hope to see you soon, whether it's on here or in person. And hopefully you enjoy the game in 2 weeks.
Yes, it should be good, mate. Cheers.
Reckon. And yeah, thank you everyone for listening or watching. And we will see you guys next week where we'll do a lot of Super Bowl preview episodes. We've got a lot of Chiefs fans, a lot of Niners fans who've been on this podcast. Should be a lot of content for you as we look forward to Super Bowl 58. I've been your host, Andy. This has been Oliver Kent, and we will see you guys next time.